All right, guys, welcome to another special episode of Candace. Here's my theory. I believe that the elites are aiming for clinical retardation. I'm not kidding. I believe that if somebody produced a study right now and said, don't drink water, 50% of people in the world would perish. They would die because they would suddenly just stop drinking water because the data says don't drink water. And obviously, I've showed you guys many times in my podcast, my favorite clip on the internet this year because it explains exactly my philosophy in life. It's the reason why we designed the second edition of the Candace Cups to say, don't care, built different. It's very important for you guys to take a listen to Andrew Tate explaining what we can garner from the data, as he says. Take a listen.
I'm glad I'm super rich. You know, now that I'm super rich, I get to be one of those crazy rich guys who acts unusual. And they're like, oh, he's a bit eccentric, but he's rich, so he gets away with it. Like wearing a microphone on his chest. Everyone else puts a suit on, hides the microphone. I'm like, get a microphone, bruv. Don't care. Built different. Don't care. One of my habits now is ignoring all data. It's great. I love when people come to me and say, actually, we've got the data to prove what, you little What are you going to prove to me? I can prove to you that the ice caps are melting. There's ice in my water right now. I'm going to leave the water unattended until the ice melts. Will the water overflow out of the cup? No. Why are all the richest, most important people in the world who are pushing this scam buying beachfront homes? Oh, but the data says. The data's from the Matrix, and you are the Matrix, and the Matrix is full of lies. Anyone who actually analyzes data nowadays proves they're a dumbass. Have you seen that graph thing, that meme where you have the most stupid people and the most intelligent people do the same thing? Then you have the midwit in the middle. Data is for midwits, you know? Well, the data says, the data says. Well, actually, I guess statistically, the pharmaceutical company who sells the jab made the data. Why are you even reading it? Why are you reading it? There were stupid people who sat there and said, the jab's made of 5G cellular data. And then there was extremely intelligent people like me who said, I don't trust these motherfuckers. And we both didn't get the jab. All the people in the middle were like, well, the data says, and the news said. They wouldn't just make us all take a jab for no reason. Jabby jab, jabby jab. If you even look at data nowadays, you're a dumbass. You should just know. Street smart people don't need data. We've just been around. You know? I've just been around. I just know things because I've just been around on the street. If somebody's trying to give you something for free so desperately, it's probably a trap. When you're street smart like me, you're on the corner. You, your boys, some bitches. Guy comes up to you, goes, you want a hamburger? Not really. Hamburgers are good for you. If you don't eat, you'll die. Yeah. You should really have this hamburger. I don't want it. If you don't have this hamburger, you're going to lose your job. I'm going to lock you in your house. I don't trust him or his hamburger. Why were you people like, well, do you have a study about this hamburger? Do you have some data on the hamburger? Oh, it says that protein's good for you. Give it to me. Dumbass. The guy who got the hamburger is trying to force it down your neck, pull the study out of his.
It's perfect. We're going to jump right into a conversation with I've watched it too many times.
Well, it's kind of funny because you probably have this also. You have a point of view and people say to you, where do you get this point of view? Why can you think that? What source does it come from? I've been around. How can you think anything else? You know, and there's a whole bunch of people who want to be enslaved to these systems.
I think slavery is natural, actually. I thought about this for a long time because I'm going, how could you accept this? Like somebody telling you to stay at home, not see your family, double mask, let your parents die alone.
Yep.
Everything spiritually should be coming online going, this is not natural, this is wrong, and I'm going to fight this. But they get in line. And even when they know it's wrong, they're still fearful to speak out and say that for fear of persecution. And something that a study that I showed, like a study that was done by the CIA, an experiment rather, to my audience was where they sat a bunch of people in a room. This is a true CIA experiment. And 17 of them were agents, and one of them was from the public, but he didn't know that he was the only person that wasn't an agent.
Yep.
And they held up a picture of a triangle, and they went around the room, and they said, what do you see? And every agent, went through them first, and they said, square, 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 square. It was clearly a triangle, square, 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 square. They get to that last guy, and he says, square. Knowing fully that he is seeing a triangle.
Yep.
So what they understand is that peer pressure, like the psychology of peer pressure, is a real thing. But it's stunning to me that grown men succumb to this, or something that's unbelievably wrong about that.
Yeah, completely. And that's why they attack masculinity so heavily, because truthfully, as a man, if you have an opinion which is different to other men, it crosses your mind, you might have to fight. That's just how it goes, right? So if you're a man and you sit in that room and 17 men say it's a square and you know it's a triangle, you're probably looking them up and down going, can I beat them all? Now me, I'm built different. I'll be like, that is a triangle, sir. You're wrong. You're wrong. But you have to have a lot of faith in yourself to be able to do that, right? A lot of people simply don't speak out because it's a scary thing to do, because now you have personal accountability and then you have to defend your opinions also. And there's a lot of people who aren't capable of or are afraid to defend their opinions, so they just think, I'll just go with the flow. And that's the actual mess we're in. I don't think the mess is so much conservatives against liberals or the sane against the insane. It's this ether in between of people who are just like, it doesn't matter, and I'm not interested in politics, and they're just going along with the system, which is probably the largest contingent of the populace, and they're just allowing this clown show to continue for as long as it's continued. And I don't think many people at home actually understand how, you say you've been around. COVID was a perfect example, but there's a lot of examples of it. But when you've seen enough of life, you see how power corrupts people and how evil people can actually be. I think the large swath of the populace who are just slowly going along with all of this, they don't believe that people are inherently evil. They're like, oh, well, I'm not evil. And why would they do that? I heard that all the time. Why would they make us get an injection if it doesn't help us? Why would they? Why would they? I don't think they understand the true dark hearts that come from a man who just wants to satisfy his ego. There are people out there who just like to laugh. They like to laugh at you wearing a mask and injecting yourself with poison. They thought it was funny. And if you sit there and think that these leaders have any interest at all in you, it's kind of interesting to me. People always say, the politicians are so stupid. And once again, that's a very optimistic view. They're not stupid. They know what they're doing. And you are confused and you think they're stupid because you think they work for you. You think, I hired the politician. The politician's my representative and he's going to go there to represent my interests. And when he doesn't represent your interests, you think he's dumb. No, he works for someone else. He uses this whole "you can vote for me" democracy garbage to allow you to accept him sitting up there and doing the opposite of absolutely everything you've ever asked for. There's not a single politician doing anything any of their people have ever asked for nearly ever in the West. They work for someone else. They work for shadow lobbies and hidden interests and big money and banks, and they work for a completely different team. They're doing the exact right votes. They're voting exactly how they're supposed to. They know they're doing their job fantastically. Your confusion is you believe they give a about you, and they never have, and they don't. And we could talk about all of this, like I said, philosophically, but it's very interesting because the world is cyclical and everything goes round in circles. You have a king who's in charge of his empire, and after a while, the king's son he's still a good king, but he's not as good. And then the next king's son has just been too spoiled and everything becomes decadent and you don't want them to be king anymore. And there's a revolution and you fight for democracy, and then democracy comes and there's a fantastic democracy at the beginning and everybody cares. And 3 or 4 generations later, everyone's just robbing and stealing as much as they can and nobody cares about the population anymore. And now you have people inside of America who would very happily put Trump as king for the rest of his life and put his son in charge. And then you go back to royalty. It's like the world is cyclical and nothing lasts forever. And when I talk to Americans especially, they don't have this concept that America can fall. They're like, but what will happen to America? I'm like, it's going to fall. I'm like, what do you mean it's going to fall? Nothing lasts forever. If you lived in Rome and you had these beautiful colosseums and these marble arches and you're wearing your robe and you had all your slaves and you're eating grapes, you can't ever imagine it on fire. One day you woke up and you looked out at Rome and you were like, no way. This is the world. This is the civilized world. This is Rome. There's nowhere else. Still burnt down. That's what happens with decadence over time. And what the West has built itself on is a very thin culture, and it's built itself on the idea that everybody can get rich. Nothing unifies us. If you look at here in Romania, even in this country, everyone has the same language, the same religion. They all watch the same TV shows growing up. right? They have the same folk stories. They do the same thing at Christmas. Everyone has a similarity amongst them. So even if they disagree politically, there's a lot that unifies the people, which is why it's a safe society. I remember when we went to school when we were young, you'd go and you'd talk about the TV show from the night before that everybody watched. Everybody. And now we don't have that anymore, right? So the only thing that unifies people in the West, because there's nothing that unifies us. We don't agree on the flag. We don't agree on religion. We don't not the same skin color. We don't speak the same language. There's nothing that unifies us except this idea that we can become rich. Go to the West, get rich, be nice to people. But now everyone's realizing you're not going to get rich. And this is where the problems are coming because they're realizing the American dream's a sham. And it's a lie. So we have this very thin culture. And we say these other countries, well, they have thicker cultures. Their cultures aren't thin, and a thick culture is good for the cohesion of society, but they're not free. And we're free. And then I sit and think, well, if you speak against authority in the West, they teach you a lesson, so you're not actually free. So how do they prop up this false idea of freedom? What they do is they put the freaks to the front. So what they do is they push the freaks to the front. So they say, look, this person chopped their off. We're free. In other countries, you can't chop your off. It's like, okay, that's fine. But I am not free to do anything important, like speak against power, like speak against AIPAC.
You're free to hurt yourself.
You're free to do dumb. You're not free to actually talk about anything important ever. And I feel like one of the reasons why they're promoting all this degeneracy is to try and keep this bullshit idea of freedom alive. Because if they took that away, you'd wake up and realize, oh, okay, this is actually no different than most of the world. And I'm not going to attack only the West for this. You can't talk against Putin in Russia, and you can't talk against Islam in Saudi, and you can't talk against the king of Laos. I'm sure you're going to pay a price. That's how the world actually is. We're the only ones who are lying about it. Sitting and saying, no, you can't talk, you can, we're free. The truth is you can't talk against authority at all. And to try and distract everyone and keep this bull dream of freedom alive, they're going to push freaks to the front, which is why I think that the freaks are getting more and more outlandish, because people are starting to realize that the freedom isn't real and they're starting to feel the cage and close. So as people are starting to sit there and realize, wait, maybe I don't live in a free country. Maybe my government is owned. Maybe they are all homosexual pedophiles. Maybe I am paying too much taxes just to blow up children. Maybe nobody has my interests at heart. Maybe my elections aren't real. Maybe my children are being brainwashed. Maybe my streets are unsafe because they refuse to police them properly. Maybe all these drugs could be stopped. Maybe, wait. He's chopped his off.
There's a man in a dress.
It's free. Freedom. And I really think
you could never have a man wear a dress in Putin's Russia.
That's right.
I think I want to go there. That sounds like, I don't want men wearing dresses.
And that's the most crazy thing about it, is that trying to show this freedom, they're actually showing to anybody with a brain things we don't even want to see, right? You can take that away. That's fine. Take that away. Another thing about talking against government, because I was talking to somebody about this, and they said, okay, well then why are you saying America's so bad when you can't talk against government anywhere else? And I said, well, the reason for that is because if you're in Russia, you know who your boss is, right? I don't personally disagree with Putin, so I wouldn't want to talk against Putin. But if you live in Russia and you do want to talk against power, you know who you're talking against. Our biggest problem here in the West is that we don't even truly, really know who we're talking against. I know that the LGBT homo mafia are in charge somewhere, which I know that's clear because they can in the Senate building and nothing happens. So that's obvious. But it's like, who? And we're spending all our time going down rabbit holes of Israel or Big Farm or military industrial complex or Globo Homo, or you're like, who is even in charge of this mess? Davos, WEF, that's the thing that's most scary to me. It's not the fact that we can't speak against power, because you can't in a lot of places. It's that we're not even allowed to know who the powerful are, because then they're accountable. It's all just theories. If they were to say it's this person, this person, and this person, those people would be in a lot of trouble very quickly. Mm-hmm. So they've removed their attachment to anything. So there's not even any accountability anymore in the West. That's what's truly scary. I'm just asking, I would like to know who's in charge here. I'd like to just wake up and say, you walk into a restaurant and everything's manager, like, why is there cockroaches? What's going on? I'd like to just go, who's the manager of the West now? Who's actually in charge of any of this mess anymore? So it's actually the thing that's most scary about this freak show is the reason they're pushing it so hard to the front is because they're trying to keep this imaginary balloon of freedom and the American dream and all this garbage ahead, because we have a very thin culture. Nothing's unifying us in the West besides the idea that somehow we're free and that somehow we'll one day get rich. That's it. And that's what's so scary. You know what I found interesting about American culture? You know the eclipse that was recent? There was an eclipse where the solar eclipse was like a few months ago. Can't remember. It was going through a few states. And I was reading on Twitter, they were talking about how the eclipse is coming and you need to be careful because it's going to be dark for 2 minutes and beware of crime and all this shit. And I sat there thinking, American culture is so thin that if it gets dark in the middle of the day for 2 minutes, there's going to be crime? People are going to rob cars? Is that how close we are to apocalypse? Is it that bad? Like, even we talk about Ukraine-Russia war, even though I agree with Putin, I think he's completely justified. The Ukrainians and the Ukrainian government, who I have distaste for, but the Ukrainian people, they're still in lines buying food. It's war. They're in a line with money buying food during war. America, it'd be looting. It would be fires. It would be free-for-all within 2 minutes. We are on the absolute precipice of societal breakdown all of the time. And the only thing that's keeping it together is everyone sitting around going, don't worry, you'll be rich one day, you'll be rich one day, while a political class just rape the tax base for as long as they can before they disappear into the sunset. How long until this all goes wrong? I mean, it's an interesting thing to observe from afar. It's super interesting.
Yeah, I think about it every day. I tell people I have an apocalyptic mindset. I've learned to grow vegetables.
Yep.
My husband hunts, he fishes. We're going to be good in the middle of a forest and we're going to survive. And you better think deeply about who you would want. I say this all the time, in your tribe. And you're going to realize that it all comes down to basic survival skills.
Yep.
Well, Andrew, it has been a pleasure having you. This conversation is going to be so banned, so demonetized.
Sorry.
I don't care. I literally don't care. Like I said, don't care, build different, because people need to hear it. And I also am very optimistic because I think that people are starting to recognize that we keep telling them the truth about what's happening in the world. And it's taking them a while to catch up, but there's enough distrust now in the mainstream media that people are starting to listen to independent voices and go directly to the source rather than allowing the mainstream media to tell them about those people and pretend that they're hateful because we believe in natural order, you know? All right, guys, that is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Candace. We will see you next time.